The clip you're about to watch or listen to is from this live stream. I invited Muslim callers to call in and ask me anything, hopefully resulting in an interesting discussion. This is the conversation I had with the last caller. Despite his chosen name of debater, this was not a debate show. There was no topic of debate, or a winner or a loser. That being said, I knew immediately that he was fishing for a debate, and I was aware, likely more than he was, of how condescending and rude he was. I just try not to take these things personally, so instead of interrupting him and demanding his respect or constantly highlighting his mistakes, I often just let him talk. Because sometimes there is value in trying to understand someone, even if they are confidently wrong. I did retaliate with a joke every now and then, but I think that those were well earned at that point. So without further ado, here is the conversation.
Yeah, very well, thanks. How would you like me to address you? What's your name?
Aladdin is fine.
Aladdin. Aladdin. Nice to meet you on YouTube.
Likewise.
Yeah, I like your style, man. You've got a lot of patience. You really do listen to what the caller's saying. You don't interrupt. It's a very nice style. So you're Saudi born, and now you're living in America or something. Is that right? Or
No. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I'm not Saudi. Don't get the Saudi government to pay attention to me, please. I'm not a Saudi national, but I grew up there, and now I don't live there anymore.
okay. And whereabouts do you live now then? Which
I
country?
I can't be specific about that for my own safety, but yeah,
No, that's fine. That's
yeah.
fine. That's fine. So you're an atheist, is that right?
In a sense, yeah. Like I take that to mean I think the idea of God is a man-made idea. I don't know what is beyond our universe, if there's anything beyond our universe.
Yeah. Okay. And that's really interesting. So is Arabic your native tongue then, or?
Yes, it is.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Brilliant. Now I've been listening to your callers talk for the last couple of hours. That's why I had these initial questions because I didn't know your demographics, etc. But I think for those who don't believe in a God and who don't believe in Islam, um, I think would naturally think that the Quran is a work of fiction, right? So
Y-
would you agree?
That it is not based on truth.
So if something's either a work of fact or fiction. So what would you, in your opinion, the Quran, the book, would it be a work of fact or fiction, or
I
is
don't
it
know if I
like a
agree with
story?
that classification. I mean, it could be, for example, that it is a work of what someone presumed to be inspired by God or presumed to be fact, but it is not true. Um, Instead of it, because I don't want fiction, I don't want to answer fiction, and that would be taken to mean that someone intentionally made it up knowing that it is not true. So I would say, is it factual? Is it true? I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm a simple guy, Aladdin. Okay, I think uh, if I'm reading a textbook, a math textbook, that's probably you know, in my simple English, a book of facts or a factual book in the simplistic term. And if I read Harry Potter, which is a story, um, that would be a work of fiction. But I think what's really what a lot of the callers have been talking to you about Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him. But I don't think you should even be thinking about Islam and Muhammad, peace be upon him, because you're an atheist by your classic, your definition, and you should be thinking about, does a God exist or not? Obviously, you've made your mind up about that, but I have a specific question to you. How do you derive? And I know with the previous caller, you were talking about morality and morals, what's right and what's wrong, what defines a good football player and what doesn't. Where do you derive your moral values from then?
So, firstly, just because I am not a believer in Islam doesn't mean that I should or should not be thinking about that. And instead, I should be prioritizing whether or not there is a God. Um, I could be thinking and talking about whatever topic. And the reason why Islam is a topic that I talk about is because it's not as commonly spoken about in this manner, and especially by people who are either doubting or have left the religion. So, in that sense, I do think that it is necessary to talk about. And then to answer your question, where do I derive morality from? I think that
Yeah.
morality is, it's not as fixed as a concept as you might think it is. For example, is killing.
What's your definition of morality then? Simple. I'm a I'm a simple person. Uh,
So basically, what do I
what,
perceive to be moral and what do I perceive to be immoral?
no. What's your definition of morality?
I'll
I mean,
answer
I
it
can give
in
you a simple definition.
mhm. um, my basically it's how I determine what is right and what is wrong.
Exactly.
Hmm.
That is exactly my definition.
Hmm.
Right. You know, when people start talking about morality, lots of smart people talk about philosophy. What is right? Let's talk about right. Look, I agree with you. Something that's right and something that's wrong. So that links to my first question: where do you derive your moral code from as an atheist?
Right. The way that I view what is right and what is wrong is by I'm also a very simple guy. Um, and
Yeah.
my understanding of morality is constantly evolving. Um, the way that I view it is the harm and benefit principles. So how is
Yeah.
this harmful to me? Is this harmful to someone else? Could this possibly be
Yeah.
harmful to the planet that will then harm someone else? That is how I view it. It's not a simple. I mean, morality is never a simple matter. For example, does killing a man is killing a man moral? Well, that really depends.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
situation are you in? Yeah.
there's things called absolute morality and relative morality, right?
Hmm.
These are philosophical concepts. Is killing good in some certain circumstances? Yes. Is lying good, or
Hmm.
if it means it saves your life, for example? Some may say yes.
Hmm.
An absolutist might say no, but you use the word evolving. That your moral code is
Hmm.
evolving. Does that mean your morality is open to change depending on what? I don't really, you know, I don't.
Depending on my
I'd be,
observations and assessment, and depending on experience, depending on what I learn, um, I am open to being wrong, even about my
yeah.
morality. Yeah. And
So
I'm
you're
curious.
so you
I'm curious. Like, where do you derive your morality from?
so my morality, of course, as a Muslim, I derive my uh, as a subjective person. I have an objective moral code, and I ascribe that to the laws pertaining to Islam. Okay. Um, yes, of course, I live in this nation state. I'm a citizen of a nation, and I have to abide by the laws and principles uh, in that nation state, which I'm a citizen of. And that's where essentially um, I derive my moral code from. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I noticed that you quickly mentioned objective morality. Um, I've
Yeah.
heard that a
So,
lot from believers that because so you're saying that because God is the source of morality and God is objective, therefore
no, no,
my
no,
morality
no,
is
no, no,
objective.
no.
Mm,
Forget God.
mm,
No, I like the way you speak because you've agreed with me on 2 points. We are. You said yourself, I'm a simple guy. I'm saying myself, I'm a simple guy. There is a written text. You can refer to it as the Quran and the Hadith, etc. That is not written by me. I'm the subject. That is the object. Okay. Of course, that writing has been written by someone, but I am the subject. That is the object. That is what I will derive my moral code from. The thing about atheism is the danger with atheism is, especially when you use the word evolving, is you can evolve your moral code to agree and say, yeah, I think actually this is harmful. I am observing this and I think this is harmful. And I actually am observing this and I think this is beneficial. So, well, an atheist is limited by their own observation. Now, you seem like a very learned person. You know, I don't know what your educational background is. Are you a scientist or an artist, or what is your educational background?
I don't think it's relevant to the conversation because I feel like you're
No,
buttering
it
me
is.
up here. Yeah.
No, it is because I'm just being polite. I'm being
Hmm.
polite, Aladdin, because you can have an atheist who might not have uh, um, a master's degree or a PhD, or in the general sense of education, and they might be, um, let's use that in inverted commas, a lay person who actually just is very hedonistic. They don't really care about anyone. They observe things. They're like, okay, I think this is right. There's no harm in it for me. I think that going to gamble all my wife's money away is really good.
Wait,
And the thing is,
this
there's
is
a
getting a
slip.
bit messy. You're mentioning a lot of unrelated things as if they're related, and it's getting a bit confusing.
There's a slippery slope essentially in
I
an
think
atheist argument.
you've created a slippery slope. I mean, I'll give you. I hate to play the well, you two argument, but it's too tempting right now. The slippery
It's
slope
not. It's not.
with theism, the slippery slope with theism is if you convince someone that God or objectivity, objectively, this is what you need to do. No amount of observation, or that's a slippery slope. No amount of observation of the harm that is being caused by their actions will convince them that this is wrong because they're under the impression that God told them to do this or that God told them this is the way to act. And that's scary that someone will not be able to correct their course because they think they're being driven by objectivity or God. Well, at least I have a humble position, which is I could be wrong and I'm open to correcting myself if I'm wrong. It's not a
Yeah.
slippery slope towards hedonism.
Well, that's encouraging to hear because the thing is, a lot of I had a conversation with an atheist not so long ago, and I asked the same question. Where do you derive your moral code? And again, they use the term suffering, right? Essentially, it's the harm benefit principle. But what doesn't make sense is uh, it is very much subjective, right? How would if the entire world were atheists? Yes, they didn't believe in God. There would be total anarchy because everyone would be like, okay, I think this is good for me. I think this is good for me. Islam, you need to understand, it's not
Wait,
actually a
do you think
religion.
people agree with each other because they all believe in God? People already disagree with each other.
So, say again?
So, do you think that the world we live in right now is not in total anarchy and that people all believe in God? Like, you're painting a picture that is not really based on reality. That if everyone didn't believe in God,
But
we would be
it's
more.
not based on reality. It's not based on reality
Then
because
what do you base that
the,
speculation on?
it's not a speculation. I'm giving you a scenario. Take away religion from the world. Let's use your model of a moral code, which is an evolving, subjective, observational, evolving moral code, which you could be wrong.
Hmm.
Would I mean? Let's just picture it for a second. Uh, there's 8 billion people, and you're talking about harm benefit. And they're going to say, look, certain
That's how it
things.
already works right now. Just like I hate to break it to you, but that's how it's working. It's in effect right now, and it doesn't always get it
What?
right. But this is our system right now. Our legal codes. It's not based on God said. It's based on observations of what works and what doesn't work,
Uh,
and it's not
if
perfect.
if you study where laws have derived from, especially, I mean, I'm talking as an Englishman,
Hmm.
common law. We have a thing called common law. We have a thing called statute law. And if you study where common law has derived from, there's a heavy, heavy Christian influence on the laws of in England, pertaining to women,
Right.
pertaining
I
to
don't disagree
divorce.
with that, but that's
Yeah,
not to say that laws are because of religion, or that there would be no laws without religion. But there's something that I've let you sneak so far into this conversation, the premise of objectivity. You don't have objective morality. From my perspective, you're someone who says, I believe that God said we have these laws, and that's why they're objective. But there's nothing that proves that God said these things.
okay, let me rephrase the question.
Mhm.
If you have a group of 100 Muslims in a room, yes,
Mhm.
they are talking about issues, they are the subjects, and they refer to an objective moral code, which is the Quran and the Hadith. Can you at least agree on that?
First of all, they do disagree among each other, and there's no objectivity there. But I don't think that's
No, no,
what
no,
that's
no,
not
no,
what
no, no, no,
objective is supposed to
no, no, no,
mean.
no.
So
You've
objective is
just taken
supposed to mean that there's an
you've just taken a
outside,
big step.
objective is
I've
supposed to
let me
mean that
repeat
there's
myself.
an unbiased, some kind of outside source of morality that is not based on the subjects that are within. Um, but what you're describing, you're kind of basically trying to sneak it as if it's objective, as if it's true, but it's
No,
not.
no,
It's yeah.
I'm referring it the simple English language, Aladdin. 100 people in a room. They are the subjects. Yes, I can easily use an analogy. Let's just move religion out of it. The you haven't told me which country you're in. Otherwise, I'd use that as an example. I live in the UK. Yes, we have a law. That law is fixed. We are citizens. That law is objective, right? We are the subjects. We are, if we have a dispute, there is the law, and then there will be a judge who will interpret that law. Yes? And then
I don't
hand
think
down a
that's what
sentence.
colloquially people say objective morality to refer to.
But that is exactly what I'm referring to as a Muslim. Because we
So
have
you're
I
saying
can
that you're
rephrase it.
you're subjected to a set of laws that are from the Quran.
No, I am using the word objective. I can rephrase it if you like, because you know this is the thing that I would like you to understand. And I said a little while ago, I am a citizen of a nation state, right? I am bound by the laws of the country I am in. Yes? Do you at least agree with me on that front? I am the
That
subject.
mhm.
The law is objective. The law is not going to discriminate against its citizens. Well, not in theory, anyway. Right?
What
Do you
what
at
do you
least
mean?
accept that?
No, because I don't understand what you're trying to say here. What do you mean the law would not discriminate against its citizens?
The law is objective. It's the, this is what I probably would invite you to look into a little bit more, because I know atheists like to talk about, well, you say objective moral code, which is the Quran and Hadith, but actually it was written by a man 1400 years ago, inspired by the word of God. That's not what I'm meaning. I am saying, and I'll say it in the secular sense, okay? I am a citizen, yes. I am a subject. The object and the objectivity of UK law is I can't change that law that's already written down. Yes, of course, you can go to Parliament, or if you're in America, you can go to Congress and whatever, make amendments to the law. But I'm just saying, let's just imagine the law as a scroll with one, two, whatever, 100 laws. That is objective, right? That is the test. The judge, the jury, they're
No,
going
no,
to
you're
interpret.
sneaking a lot of. What does testing have anything to do with? The law is not meant to test you. That's
No, no.
that. Testing has
I
nothing to
am
do with
trying
the
to.
topic.
I'm trying to make you understand about what I mean by objective moral code, as akin to, using the analogy, objective national law, right? So that is how I would, and as I said, I derive my morals. Like here in the UK, let's just say you can't drive until you're 17, right? So I agree with that. Yes. So if you're 16, I would say that's a wrong thing. That's bad. Does that make sense?
I wouldn't say that's bad, but that it is illegal according to the law.
No, but illegal things by virtue are bad, right?
I mean, if I were to say that, if I were to presume
It's
that the
not. It's not.
laws,
It's not. It's
if I
not
were to presume
absolutely
that,
bad.
yeah, if I were to
But
presume
I'm
that the
just saying,
law
in
is
general,
supposed to be, the law is to, for the benefit of the people, and so that more, so that harm is not done, then I would have to presume that, yeah, according to the law 16. I just don't understand where this is going. So let's say I
no, but
agree with you.
this is. You agree with me? Beautiful, because
Let's
this
say
is
I
the.
do, because I want to know what's next. Sure.
Let me tell you, because the law, as far as I understand, okay, as I said, I keep saying I'm a simple person, limited person. The UK law, the national law, is there to is designed by the people, for the people, okay, to protect the people, to harmonize society. That's the intention, right? And it's essentially using the harm benefit principle, right? So it's objective in nature. I'm not even disagreeing, because I could say, and you can say, actually, you go to Parliament, you go to Congress, people write these laws. But I am saying, look, just for argument's sake, do you agree that there's an objective nature to that law? Yes, of course. So similarly, there's an objective nature to the law pertaining to the Quran and Hadith. So that's where I derive
I
my
mean,
moral code from.
if I were to write down my one specific law that I came up with, and I say I am now subject to that law, does that mean that my law is objective? If I were to just write it
Say that.
down on a piece of paper.
Say that again.
So right now, my
Yeah.
morality is all in my head. If I were to write it down on a piece of paper and say I am subjected to this law, does that mean my moral code is objective?
No, but that's in an element. In an element, in a way, it can be. But
So in the same
if
element that
there's
you're describing, so we both have objective morality. Where do we go from there?
but no, but the thing is, you're writing your own law down. Does that make sense? There's no
If I get a
objective,
bunch of lawyers to write it down for me, if I get a guy to write it for me and then die, is it objective then?
and you stick to those laws.
Sure.
So you get a group of lawyers. Let's follow your argument, because all you've got now is just a group of lawyers. What do the lawyers do?
I don't know where we arrived here. I'm trying to get this simple answer to a simple question, because I too am a simple man. If I were to
Yeah.
codify my morality, if I were to write it down on a piece of paper and say I am now subject to this, does that mean that my sense of morality, my moral code is objective?
No, because it's coming. That law is coming from you. So how could it be
If
objective?
my friend were to
Because
write down a piece of law on paper and I were to follow it, does that mean that my moral code is objective?
say that. So you're saying, if your friend wrote a law down,
Hmm.
yes, and you said, I am going to follow all my friend's laws,
I'm going to
or
follow
is that?
this one law off of this one paper. Does that mean that I am subject to that law? This is objective law.
Well, it's not coming from you, is it? So you're the
No.
subject.
Yeah.
You are the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The law that your friend has written down is the object.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I
So
should start
I don't.
swapping moral codes with friends. That would make my morality objective.
you're saying you should start swapping moral codes with your friends, and that would make your moral code objective.
Yeah, if
No,
I'm
it doesn't work.
subjected.
It doesn't work like that, because by the sheer nature of swapping laws, there's an element of subjectivity that's being essentially
What does subjectivity
transmitted.
mean? I feel like those words don't mean what you think they mean.
You feel like those words don't mean what I think I mean.
Yeah, because you're saying basically it's objective means that you're being subjected to it. But then every time I try to comply with that, you add more criteria like, well, it can't come from you. Well, it can't come from another person.
It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple concept. The thing is, now you're starting to actually think about it, Aladdin, right? And you can understand the subjective nature, which is from oneself, right, to an objective nature, which is away from oneself. And that is essentially what theists who believe in scripture talk about. That's what people who don't have a religion.
Is objectivity just the distance from oneself?
It's not distance in terms of physical distance.
Right, but degrees of separation from oneself?
Why have you asked that question?
Because it was something that you said that it's not coming from within you, it's separated from you. So is it about the separation? Is that what makes something objective?
Let's talk about subjective assessment and an objective assessment. Let's bring it back down to earth, because I agree with you. You know, there's you're not really grasping the idea of what subjective is and what objective is.
Yeah, I'm very simple. You got to break it down for me. I'm too simple-minded.
Okay, so you've got a maths test, right? 1 to 10, 10 questions, right? So you write the test, and then you mark your own test. That is a subjective assessment. Now, you might tick all 10 questions.
I don't make up the math, but if I'm complying by the rules of math, then no, it's not a subjective assessment. It's objectively from, objective assessment by the laws of math. It doesn't matter whether I correct them or the teacher does.
No, but you can, if you assess, it's not about whether it's right or wrong in terms of a mathematical truism, right? I'm giving you a simple answer. Your math test, you can tick, even though it's all wrong, your subjective assessment, you can tick it all correct, right? 10 out of 10. But it's subjective. Now, an objective assessment would be someone who is actually learned in maths, like an authority, and they are marking your test sheet, like your teacher, for example.
Wait, is this about authority? So can the teacher correct their own test paper because they have the authority to do it?
Can the teacher... no, because they're the subject. Does that make sense? It's a subjective assessment.
It's not about the authority then. So can I correct the teacher's test paper and that would be objective for them?
Say that, but you're not an authority. You're a student.
So wait, is it about authority or about not being the person correcting their own test? I'm trying to put a handle on this. I'm trying to bring it down to earth.
We are bringing it down to earth. If I need to explain to you in simple terms, right? Subjective assessment and objective assessment, for the only reason of you not essentially accepting that atheists have an arbitrary...
We're talking about math tests. We're not talking about atheism right now.
No. I've answered the question, Aladdin. Okay, your misunderstanding of a simple concept of what is a subjective assessment, or what subjective is and objective is, that is probably something that I would say, look, you need to go and read up on what subjective and objective means, because from your questioning, Aladdin, I don't think you understand that. I deep down, I think you understand it. Of course you do, but you're not willing to admit it openly on YouTube,
You know what
because
that
that would
sounds like to me? You know what that sounds like to me? Like the whole concept of a kafir. Like deep down you believe in Islam, but you refuse to admit it.
no, no,
Um,
no, 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 no. Look,
it's
look.
exactly the same concept. Are you
It's
incapable of realizing that someone can not agree with you or not actually understand what you're saying?
you might not understand what I'm saying, but do you accept that there is a thing called a subjective assessment and an objective assessment? Can you accept that, at least in plain English?
I feel like all your questions are very leading. So I accept that there is such a thing as a subjective assessment and an objective assessment? I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah, sure. But
Well,
I was
can you?
trying to ask you
No, no, no,
questions like
no,
in
no,
your
no, no, no,
hypothetical of 10
no.
questions of I was trying to clarify in your hypothetical of 10 questions, I
No, no,
can't
no,
correct
no.
my own paper because that's subjective, or I can't do it objectively, but a teacher can do it for me. Can I correct a teacher's
Hold
exam
on,
paper if I
hold on,
have less
hold
knowledge
on,
of math? Yeah.
hold on, hold on.
Hmm.
This is what in the online world is called tap dancing. Okay.
Hmm.
You said you've got a good understanding of subjective assessment and objective assessment.
I didn't
I'm just
say
going to
that.
accept
I didn't
that. No,
say
you
that I have
just
a
said it
good
just now.
understanding of subjective and objective assessments. I never said those words.
Okay, let's say, do you understand those terms?
To be honest with you, I barely understand anything you said because in your attempts to explain what you mean to say, you're confusing all of us even more.
Okay, why don't you give your understanding of what subjective assessment and objective assessment is? I'm confusing you. I
You're the
accept
ones
that.
who came up with those terms. You tell me what you mean.
I came up with those terms. I've confused you. I accept that. Can you explain to me what your understanding of subjective assessment and objective assessment is?
Honestly, I have no idea what those terms mean. Please do define them.
Okay. If you have no idea, look, the purpose of the call is, your channel title is Apostate Aladdin, right? You openly go and talk about how Islam is misguiding people, essentially. The previous caller, you asked him questions about criticism, etc. Of course, you can criticize until you're blue in the face. Go and criticize anything you want. It's a free world, right? You can go and do whatever you want. I'm not going to object to anything, right?
Are you going to
Um,
subject to anything?
am I going to subject to anything?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I'm trying to understand what those words mean, so I'm just, starting to form my understanding simply, from the ground up.
Yeah, so that's something that you need to think about, because your arbitrary moral code, which you haven't defined. You're saying, look, it's based on the harm principle, harm benefit ratio. I think this. I think through my observations. To be honest, it's going to lead to anarchy, right? That's why we have a society. That's why we have laws in nation states. That's why in Islam there are laws, whether you like them or not. If you're a Muslim, you've got you've got to subscribe to them. Is there benefit in the laws? Of course. Just as the laws that are written for the people have written laws for nation states for the benefit of society. And that is the same principle that's being applied in Islam. The thing that's very that's that I don't understand is, you have rejected Islam and you couldn't answer the simple question, right? There's a Quran, and I said to you, is it a work of fact or fiction? And you
I think
start
that's a
saying,
false
oh,
dichotomy.
How is it a false dichotomy?
Not everything is fact or fiction.
What else can it be then? Why don't you
Someone could
educate
be
me?
someone could be misled about the facts. Someone could think that they wrote down a fact, but they didn't make it up. They were mistaken in their perception.
Right? So what would that be?
Would it be a
If
fiction?
it's
Like my partner asked me how many things did you buy at the grocery store today, and I say three when the objectively true answer is two.
no, 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 no.
I
You're
didn't
going
make up
away from
three. It's
you,
not a
you're going
fact, but it's not fiction either.
you're going away. I
Hmm.
said about the book. I didn't say about general things, either they're facts or fiction. I talked about
Right.
books, right? And we started off our conversation by saying we both look at things simply, right?
Hmm.
I said Harry Potter is a work of fiction,
Hmm.
right? I said a math textbook is a I would say where would you classify it? Fiction or fact? I'd say fact. Yes? All right? In the general sense. And you can't answer the simple question, the Quran, is it fact or fiction? Right?
I think I figured it out. I can't answer
As a
simple questions because I'm not a simple man. I'm sorry. I might have been misleading you
okay.
there. I am not a simple man.
So now you're a profound man.
That's a false
You're a
dichotomy.
profound
I don't.
you're a deep thinking man. This is what Islam makes us do, right? It makes us ponder. It makes us think. There are verses in the Quran that say, look, look around you. I don't even want to talk about how does God exist, because you know all the arguments. You know all the arguments. Now, if you are in your dogma, you have that dogmatic belief that, you know what, there's absolutely no God. It brings me to the question, Aladdin, final. I'm not going to stay on for long. The final question is, if God presented himself in front of you today, what would you do?
So before I answer that, I just want to address that you said my dogmatic belief that there is no God. If you were paying attention when I told you about my beliefs about God, it was not a dogmatic belief that there is no God. I said I think the idea of God is a man-made idea, and I don't know what is beyond the universe, if anything. Maybe even to the to the letter. That's what I said. But to
So wait,
answer,
okay,
mhm.
to the letter, let's just delve into that a little bit. You have said that the idea of God is a man-made belief,
Mhm.
right? So what's your definition of God? In the idea of God, what's your definition of God? Or your understanding of that word God in the phraseology that you used,
Mhm.
an idea of God being man-made.
Let me even
What's
correct
your
myself.
understanding of
Every idea about God, I don't want to restrict myself to one idea. Every idea we know about God is an idea we heard from another human. There's never been a description of God written in the sky in a way that no human could have written. Everything we know about God is something that some human said. So every idea we have about God, not just one idea, which is Allah, all of them, as far as we know, as long as we don't have any information that shows otherwise, are man-made ideas or man-derived ideas. So to like wrap up, I'm not gonna talk for too long. Just to give you my answer again, every idea we have about God is an idea that we heard from a human being. So that's why I say
yeah.
every idea about God is man-made.
No, but that of course it is. Of
Hmm.
course, no Muslim, right, will you know uh, disagree with that with the idea that we would not even know about what God is if we did not learn that concept from someone. I'm not disagreeing with that, but that doesn't still mean it's not mutually exclusive that that concept and God can't exist at the same time, right? So the question is, does God exist? It's either a yes or a no.
Or
It's
an
not about the
I don't
idea.
know. No, there's an I don't know, and the question itself is a man-made question. I mean,
Okay, so
yeah.
it's
Can,
just
can you
no,
can
no.
you objectively prove that there is no invisible dragon in the sky right now?
Hold up. Let me just hold on to that thought, because you're saying it's either does God exist, yes or no, right?
I don't know.
If no, but what I'm saying is, let's just say, for example, if there was a dragon in the sky and you didn't know, you thought there wasn't, and I thought there was, there's a 50-50 chance that that dragon is that one of us are right?
I mean, no, by that logic, there's an anti-God that exists, and actually it can kill Allah at any point, and there's a 50-50 chance
Wait,
that that
wait,
exists. Just
wait.
because I can
What's an
conceive of an
anti-God?
idea, but that's what I'm saying. Just because I can conceive of an idea doesn't mean that there's a 50-50 chance whether it exists or not.
Okay, you know you're talking to me right now. Let's bring it back down to earth, because I think
Mm.
when
I
we
love Earth,
when
yes. Back to Earth.
when Aladdin,
Mm.
I feel like when we start talking about celestial things, using that biblical phrase, right? You
Mhm.
seem to I don't know, you seem to uh, flounder, in my humble opinion.
Mhm.
Now, I am talking to you, right? You cannot see me,
Mhm.
yes?
Mhm.
Um, and you can hear me,
Right.
yes? Am I just a voice that's being transmitted, or uh, am I actually a person?
I
Or
have
you don't know?
precedent. I have precedent to believe that you are a person because I've done this before and people have called using this method before. So it's safe to presume that you are a person, not a like
Yeah.
I'm not
No.
hallucinating this.
Okay. So that's you're essentially using the argument of David Hume, which is the theory of induction. So because you've done it many times before, you've got on live, you've invited callers, you've confirmed that they are human, and that indeed I must be a real human. Now, in terms of reducing things in its simplicity, I am a man, right? I use that word man.
You tell
God.
me. Mhm.
You use the word God, right?
Mhm.
I said, what's your idea about God? You start diverting away to all the ideas of God it's all man-made or not. Let's
No.
just say,
Mhm.
let's just for argument's sake, right? Say God is one entity who is all powerful, all knowing, all seeing, etc., etc., right? That is when you look above, yeah, directly above, somewhere millions and millions of miles away, at the edge of the where time and space end, is outside that time space framework. Okay, just for argument's sake. Now, he either exists or he doesn't. Do you accept that question at least? Not the answer. Do you accept that one can pose a question?
Let me try to wrap my head around
Does
that question. We have to, for argument's sake, say that the definition of God, what was it again? That it was one entity.
one entity
Uh-huh.
that's all knowing, all powerful, all omnibenevolent?
Mhm.
Yes.
Right.
I don't
And
know
you
if you can be omnibenevolent. You can be benevolent. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
question is, does it exist? Yes or no? So this is a
Does it
definition of a
does it
being.
exist
Mhm.
outside of creation?
First of all, that is presuming that there is a thing outside of
No,
creation.
it's not
I don't
the.
know what
It's
creation
not.
means.
It's not the answer.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Even in the question itself, does it exist outside of creation? Then we have to say, what is creation and what do you mean by outside of it?
have you heard of the contingency argument?
I have, but please do tell me
Right.
what you mean by it.
Okay. So if you have heard of it, I don't want to bore you by going through the contingency argument. It's essentially something that is a necessary being that is independent of all dependent things in a simplistic way. All
Hmm.
right. So they either, I didn't say, do you accept any do you accept the answer that I'm giving? Do you accept that the question that I can pose is, this entity either exists or doesn't exist?
You could pose that question. I accept that you can pose that question. Yeah.
Right. And do you accept that it's binary? It's a binary question. So it either exists or it doesn't.
There's an answer, which is I
No,
don't
no,
know.
forget the answer.
No,
Forget the
there's
answer, buddy.
there's an answer,
No,
which
no.
is I don't know.
So you're an agnostic then. You're not an atheist.
Like I said, the definition of every definition of God, every
No, forget the
every
definition
idea
of God,
about God,
man.
every idea about God is man-made.
Look,
Does
if
something
you say,
exist beyond our knowledge? I don't know. I'm
you know the
agnostic
premise.
about that.
You know the
Mhm.
No. This is the bit. You might listen to this conversation again. You might be like, forget this. I've heard this 100 times. Think about what subjective assessment is, or subjectivity is, what objectivity is. What does subjectiveness in an objective moral code mean in an Islamic context, or a theist context, or someone who believes in scripture? And what does it mean in a secular context? Are there any parallels with that idea? Is there a universal idea in language, in the English language, about what subjective and objective means? That's something that you need to wrap your head around. And the other thing is, I've said, do you accept that I can ask the question about this necessary being that can? You said yes, we can accept, and I've said
Yeah, I
we
can
can
accept and
accept
can
that.
ask any question. Yeah.
Yeah, you can accept it. And do you accept that it was binary in nature? So it's either a yes or a no. It either exists or it doesn't. Right? So in atheist views, now for me, I think that you're an agnostic because you can't answer the question. So either God exists or God does not exist. If you don't know, by definition, you're an agnostic.
Like
Does
I
that make
said
sense?
before, the idea of every idea of God we know is from another human being, and that is, to me, a fact, unless it's proven otherwise. Is there
No, but
something that is beyond existence, that is beyond my comprehension? I cannot know that. So I would say, sure, I'm agnostic about that, but it doesn't mean it's a 50-50 chance. I'm agnostic about everything that I cannot possibly prove and will never be proven.
So okay, let's bring let's this is the thing that you need to focus on, because you can be agnostic about a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
I've never been to South America, right? I've seen it on a globe, I've seen it on a map, I've seen that people go to it. Can I prove that? Can I prove that it exists? Right? I might not have the faculties to prove it. Yes, people will be like, okay, this is why I asked you the question, Aladdin. If God, this idea that is man-made, yes, I will go with your argument. This idea that is man-made, yes. If that God came in front of you, what would you do?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that question earlier. So, if God came in front of me, well, what does it look like in
No,
that
no.
scenario?
If the man-made idea, right? The word God, I could not have learnt if another man or man did not teach me that word God, right? There's an idea you're talking about. Let's just stick with the idea that God is man-made. Yes, it's the idea of God is man-made. I don't
Hmm.
disagree with that, because there has to be a chain of narration. Yes, I
No,
learnt it
but
from my.
you kind of disagree. You're saying the chain of narration is God told an angel that told a man that then there's a chain of human narration. I'm saying it's all
No,
humans
no,
all the
no,
way
no, no,
down.
no, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying. That is exactly what I am not saying.
Hmm.
I am saying this. I am sticking with your premise. The
Hmm.
idea of God, right, is a man-made thing. Okay. I believe God exists. Right. That's faith. I cannot prove God to you. Yes. Can you understand my conception, my concept of what God is? Yes, you can, because we've talked about it, right? You might say, actually, someone else thinks it's a red dragon in the air. I don't even dispute that. I talk to you about this necessary being, which is independent of all dependent things, right? Which is forming the basis of the contingency argument. Okay. So if
Wait, we're
we
getting it.
agree, if
Are we going to
hold
pivot
on, hold
back
on,
to the question, which is if God appeared in front of
yeah,
me? Okay.
yeah. If that God, which
Which
is one
that?
entity,
Yeah. Okay.
that God, which is one entity,
Hmm.
almighty, all powerful, came in front of you today, right? What would you do?
So yeah, what does that look like? Like, let me ask a question. If there was a camera in my room right now that saw the encounter happen, what would it look like? Or if there was someone else standing there, what does that look
Exactly.
like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, for argument's sake, let's just say it looks like a Dell laptop. Like a
Okay.
Dell laptop. In the form, you know how Christians say in the form of man Jesus Christ. Let's just, for argument's sake, in front of you, you correctly identify that this entity is the Dell laptop, which is God. Yes, that God exists. Yes, in the form of a Dell laptop. What would you do?
So how would I identify that this is God?
No, okay, God is talking to you. It's like, look, I'm God.
So, okay. First of all,
The thing is,
yeah.
let me tell you something. Your question is the correct question
Hmm.
because atheists always talk about how do I observe this? I am not committing blasphemy by talking about God in the form of a Dell laptop. Okay, it's just for your. I don't believe God has a form, right?
Hmm.
I believe that God, uh, the how God looks is beyond my comprehension,
Hmm.
right? Uh, just as just as I cannot prove an electron exists in subatomic particle theory, scientists cannot prove an electron exists. But we, as really learned, intelligent human beings, just eat it all up. Yes, proton, neutron, electron, it all exists. It must be true. I am telling you, you keep asking questions. God, you've identified God. God's talking to you, right? God's come in front of you. It doesn't matter what form God comes in, right? God's
Okay.
talking to you. You've correctly identified God,
Okay. So
right? Now,
that's
is that
skipping a step.
is that?
I
Hold on.
first of
Is
all,
that
I would want to
my
know.
next question?
No, no, no. I
Aladdin, one
haven't even
second.
answered the previous question. How can we go to the next question? I need to know how I would identify that that is God, because my first impulse would be, am I hallucinating? Do I have
Yeah.
other witnesses? Is this a phenomenon that only I am seeing? And then I would start asking God questions to try to figure out, okay, how do I know that you're actually God? And if I am God, essentially what I would want to do if had that is have that God prove his God status or its God status to everyone. And I'm not exactly sure how it would do that, but it would have to be something that not only I am seeing in that moment. And then what would I do if I somehow were able to verify all that? I'd ask him, so what the hell was all that stuff about? Like,
No,
I'll
no,
ask him all the questions that I have
no,
about
no, no,
Islam.
no, 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 no. Look, this line of questioning, I've
Hmm.
heard it all before, Aladdin. With all due respect,
Hmm.
you, especially as uh, a Muslim who has left the fold, you as a person who's left the fold of Islam by your own admission, would submit to that God. You'd be like, fuck, I made the wrong decision. Sorry, excuse my language. I made the wrong decision. Actually, there's a God that exists. I was wrong, right? So that literally brings it back down, reduces the this argument of God that I've talked about in the context of the contingency argument, in the context of agreeing with all your premises, that it's binary, man. God either exists or God doesn't exist.
No,
The
no,
thing
but
is,
all that would have
hold up.
been
Let me
proven to
tell
me
you.
in that moment is that a supernatural entity
I haven't finished
exists.
my. I haven't finished my answer. Aladdin, I haven't
Your
finished
answer
my
for my
answer.
question? Sure, yeah. Finish your
Let
answer
me
for my question. For
let
the
me
question
finish.
that you asked
Let me
me.
finish my answer.
Yeah.
Let me finish my answer because it's binary, right? Either God exists or God doesn't exist. And what atheists do is, I ask the same questions to all atheists, right? If God presented himself in front of me today, right, I would be submitting myself in front of God, right? That's what I would be doing. I've got a simple answer. Yes. What atheists do is they say, okay, actually, how do I observe it? Well, I would ask God to prove himself, that God, they are omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, etc. All the miracles, and then it begs the question: what would it? What burden of proof do you need? Because theists, the thing about theists, right, is that they cannot present God in front of you, because that is your minimum. Like, look, God has to be in front of me. I will then observe the God with my eyes. Then I will hallucinate. I will say, am I hallucinating? Then I will ask God to do a series of things. So God, the Almighty, can prove to me that they're God. Okay, so, when I was a young student back in school, we had a thing called Philosophical Society, Aladdin, okay? And I was a member of that Philosophical Society. The conversations, you agree that there is a reality, there is a world, there is a thing where it's actually nonsensical to say, am I just a voice that I'm speaking to you via YouTube? Of course, I'm a human. It doesn't mean that we can't have philosophical conversations, right? But if every conversation is reduced to, okay, what is reality? Are we actually in lots of brains in a jar, and we're all, communicating? I can't prove that. We may well be. But the thing is, if all the conversations in life, right, about important things, yes, are reduced to that, especially something as important as whether you're going to meet your creator again, right? It's a 50-50 thing. It's very simple. The people who are listening, either God exists or God doesn't. So either you're going to believe in God and find God's going to decide what he's going to do with you, or you're not going to believe in God, and then God is going to decide what he's going to do with you, right? The thing is,
I'm really trying to
this
understand the string of narrative in what you're saying. Um, I think I'm getting a bit confused at this point. Can you simplify it for me?
no, it is simple, right? It's the theists' argument. Atheists always say to theists, "Prove to me that God exists." Yeah.
Wait, why are we having an argument about what other theists said? I haven't said it. I haven't said that.
No. This I'm talking in generic terms, because I've prefaced this conversation by saying, Aladdin, you're a person who's left the fold of Islam, right? You should be talking about the Quran like it's a book of fiction, right? It shouldn't even matter to you, that this religion exists, or this. It's not
If
even a
people
religion.
treated it like a book of fiction, it wouldn't matter to me. I don't debate or talk about what's his name, Harry Potter, because I don't care. Even if there are Harry Potter nerds who role play Harry Potter, it doesn't affect people's lives and marriage and life and death. That's why.
So you're doing it for for social productivity.
I don't know if I'd put it that way, but I do it because it has an impact on people, and I'm trying to help people that it has an impact on.
In the same vein, Aladdin, I haven't actually clicked on all your videos, right? About um, Muhammad, peace be upon him, etc. But the level of which you criticize, and I don't disagree with criticism, right? This is a free world. Make your videos. People will click on them, etc. You're doing about Islam, right? Why don't you do it about Judaism? Why don't you make a cartoon of Moses
I
and Jacob?
I've actually, if I remember correctly, I've done Moses, but in the Islamic story, or was it Abraham?
No,
No,
but
it might have been
no,
Abraham.
but
Anyway, point is, yeah. To answer your question, Judaism is not the religion that my family and friends follow, or the religion that is subjecting a lot of people to rules and harm. I'm sure it's happening, but wait,
hey,
hear me out. Hear me out. There are people who are Jewish and ex-Jewish and whatever it is who are doing that stuff. I'm not here talking about Christianity or making sketches about Christianity, because there are a lot of people doing that stuff. You can't just and you know what? People ask them the same question. Why aren't you making videos about Islam? Why are you making it about Christianity? And they would point to me and say, people are already doing this stuff about Islam. So I don't have to, it's not a gatekeeping step where I have to criticize every religion
no, you
equally.
don't have to. I'm just
Right.
saying. I'm just saying.
Hmm.
You don't, like I said, you don't have to do whatever you don't want to do. But if you criticize, why don't you make a YouTube channel, criticize Judaism in the same fashion, right, that you
I've
do
already given
Islam?
you the answer. I've already given you the answer.
Hold up, hold up.
Yeah.
I know you've given me the answer. Shall I
Hmm.
tell you what's going to happen? Right? There will be a
I've heard this
massive
tired.
clampdown on it.
I've heard this tired argument so many times, and I tell you what, Judaism is not from God either. I don't give a crap about Judaism. If there are any Jews watching, they know this. I don't care about your religion. I don't think it's holy. I don't think it's special, and I think it's here's one that is gonna make some people sad, but it's not gonna get my channel taken down like you think. I think it's very silly to think that God chose the Jews as his chosen people and then watched them suffer the acts of World War II. I think that's silly. So, what's next?
Do you see how that links to my question about your moral code, about what's right and wrong? The thing is,
I don't think
I'm
any of us
talking
see
about my.
anything you're saying, but
Hold up,
sure.
hold up, Aladdin.
Hmm.
My personal
Hmm.
moral code is there are atheists, right? Yeah, we can have a friendly conversation about, or a civil discourse about, um, the idea of God or whatever, right? But if you know, as a person who's left Islam, for example, and please, when I say I've finished, I will say the words I've finished. If you make a
Thank you
cartoon
for giving me
character,
permission on my own channel. But yeah.
if you're going to make a cartoon character about, Muhammad, peace be upon him, that person is revered so highly in a billion people's lives, or more than a billion people's life, and that it will really piss them off. The moral code which you ascribe to, which is, I observe things, I
Hmm.
see how much benefit and harm it's going to do, how much it's going to piss people off versus how much benefit it's going to do,
Well, can
right?
I can can
I'm
I
gonna.
answer that? Can I
I haven't
answer that?
finished it. Hold up, 1 second. I haven't finished
Well,
it
I'm
because
starting to get to a
hold up.
point. I have a mute button, right? Like I can mute you,
I
but
know.
I've been nice.
I am finishing. I'm finishing because when I talk about Judaism, right? I would talk about it in a respectful way, right? I would talk
Good
to
for
atheists
you.
in a respectful way.
Good for
But
you. Okay, all right. It's my turn now. Okay, sorry, I had to mute him. Look, to answer your question, right? Based on a benefit harm principle, I think I'm still doing more benefit than harm, even though people might be offended, because it is removing the holy aura of the character of Muhammad, thinking that no one can criticize him and everyone should follow in his footsteps. When people see that, no, he is being drawn, and I'm not even drawing him in a mocking manner, I'm making light of the stories and the events that allegedly happened. And I'm showing people that you don't have to mock Muslims to do it. There are even Muslims who watch my videos and they're like, even though you do something that is haram and blasphemous, I see that you don't come from a bad place. So I'm helping more people than I'm harming, and that's at least how I view it. And as you've seen, I've been very respectful to you and other people as well. I'm not being belligerent. I'm not belittling people for their beliefs. So I think I've been very consistent so far.
No, I can definitely commend you in the conversation that I've had with you. You've probably been more respectful than me. So, of course, this is. I've been on channels before where you're discussing Islam, and it turns into a vitriol of abuse, and you're like, look, why are you getting so worked up about this? You don't even believe in it, right? So, you can have a civil discourse, but um, there are things, maybe it's because I'm coming from a British viewpoint. In America, certainly they don't have um, uh, restrictions to free speech to the level that we do here. But certainly people's sentiments need to be taken into consideration when doing certain
Does the
behaviors,
Quran
because
take people's sentiment into consideration when it says those are the worst of people, those are the whatever? The Quran doesn't give a crap what people's sentiments think, and Muslims don't either, right? And I don't like. I'm not saying that Muslims are all rude to people, but if you were to repeat a verse 5 times a day and say that those are the worst of people, they deserve to be tortured and all that stuff, I consider that to be hateful. But I don't think you care. I don't think you're going to stop saying it
no,
because
no,
I consider it to be hateful.
no, I do care. I care because
Are you
I
going to
need to
contest it with Allah?
appreciate. Hold up, I need to appreciate why that verse was written, right? If it means this is what's going to happen, it's a deterrent, okay? Yes, I appreciate that kind of language. But it's something that uh, Muslims need to deal with in their scripture, right? The first thing that you need to do, Aladdin, I'm talking to you as a person,
Hmm.
is you need to decide whether you're an agnostic or an atheist.
Oh
Once
my
you've done
God,
that,
you're still stuck on that? I mean,
no,
that was
this
30 minutes ago, and I've already given you my answer clearly. Um, and I told you,
no,
based
you
on my
didn't.
answer, I
You
told you I'm
didn't.
agnostic
You
about
didn't.
things that cannot be proven, and I'm atheist in the sense that all, religious beliefs are man-made. And we've moved on from that, or at least I thought we did. But why does it matter to you what the label is?
It's I think there was a philosopher called Wittgenstein, right, who said we are limited by our language, right? So to have a discourse, we need to agree on certain things, right? So if you're not going to agree that if you're going to agree that I'm a person on the end of a phone talking to you right now, yeah, okay, let's agree, because that is the true reality in that in inverted commas. But this is where um, you won't understand certain concepts. Just like I don't understand the Trinity, right?
Hmm.
I've got 5 degrees. I cannot understand the concept of the Trinity. I respect it. That's their belief, you know. But to understand, I would have to have faith, and that's what I mean by dogmatic belief, right? That's the thing you said in your with your previous caller. That why has God's why is God testing us? God's testing our faith, because if God came in front of you, let's be honest, Aladdin, as a person who's left Islam before, you would be getting your head on that floor, right? You'd be like, oh God, I made the no pun intended. Oh God, I made the wrong decision, right? I
No,
left
first,
the
first I
fold
say
shaitan.
astaghfirullah because I think it's the shaitan. But yeah, no, jokes aside, you presume that would be my reaction. And you assert that that would be my reaction. I don't. I think more highly of Allah than you do. I wouldn't be like, oh shit, oh no, he's gonna kill me, he's gonna torture me. I'd be like, dude, what was that about? Like, tell me where I what did I miss? Tell me where I was wrong in my assessment. I wouldn't be so
No, but
terrified. Like,
that's what the test is about, Aladdin,
you
right? If
talk
you
as
have
if
faith,
faith is a virtue. Like, we don't treat faith as a virtue. You don't look at a bridge and say, I have faith that it's going to work, and we treat that as a good engineer or a good person. No, we do the calculations. We make sure that it doesn't break. Faith is not a virtue.
what is it? A science? Is it based on induction? Is it based on the theory of induction?
What I'm saying, that faith itself is not an amazing thing. Like, it's, you're not a good
I
person for having faith compared to someone who doesn't have it.
Hey, buddy, listen. I agree with you. Faith is not a virtue, right? But
Hmm.
if that faith leads you to God, and that leads you to salvation,
Is there any way to God that is not through faith?
shall I be honest?
Yep.
No, because otherwise you would have proof, right? If you had
So if faith is not a
proof,
virtue, right? If faith is not a
uh,
virtue, and someone can't find God
hold up, buddy.
except through faith, then God
I
didn't
haven't
make an
finished my
avenue. Yeah, sure.
I haven't finished my answer because, okay, I agree with your premise. Faith is not a virtue, all
Hmm.
right? But if faith leads you to God, right?
But
And
faith could
God
lead you to so
said,
many other things.
no. I'm using that term, your premise, faith is not a virtue. I didn't say faith does not lead you to God. If that faith leads you to God, right, and you've worshipped God in the way that God commanded you to, right, you've hit the jackpot. Yeah,
But
you've won the lottery.
if that faith leads you to join a suicide cult, right? It's the same kind of faith. I'm not telling you it's right to do that, but it's the same mechanism. If at the end of the day, if God showed up in front of you, if Allah showed up in front of you and told you to murder
I don't
yourself,
disagree with
you would do it.
I don't.
You would do
I
it
do
because of
not.
faith.
I
I'm
hold up, buddy.
right.
I do not disagree with your understanding of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I do not disagree with you because you can have faith that some random guy is the promised Messiah. He tells you to jump off a bridge and you do it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or commit suicide, like you said. But in Islam, we have faith as Muslims, right? That one true God, one creator, that one
No.
necessary
Before you
being
get there, you were saying
exists.
faith is not a virtue, but if that faith leads you to God, then God's salvation. I'm like, but that faith itself, the same mechanism of faith, can lead you to things that are not good. So how can you praise faith when it can lead you to bad things and it could lead you to good things? And if there's no way to
That's what
God except through
that is.
faith.
Wait, hold up.
It's like
That
saying
is
that the only way to join as a caller on my live streams is to answer like scammy comments that say, send me your phone number and I'll send you Bitcoin. Like, maybe that is the mechanism that I use, but why would I use the same mechanism as scammers?
that's a false dichotomy. That's the definition of a false
No, it's
dichotomy.
not. It's not.
Okay.
In that analogy, the faith is the same as, like, faith can be used to scam people, and responding to comments that say I'll send you Bitcoin to your phone number can be used to scam people. But I could use it to screen for callers at the same time. But it would be my fault for using the same mechanism that scammers use.
Hold up. Faith, Miss Aladdin, right, is the substitute for your conclusive proof in your views or in a human's views. It's in absence of that subjective conclusive proof that a God exists through their eyes or however they are going to be convinced. That's what the faith is. Because if God came in front of you today and he identified you, we're not going to go through the nitty gritty. You know it's God. God's identified himself to you. You know it's God, right? You'd say, okay, yeah, God exists, right? That faith. Faith might not be a virtue because, yeah, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But our faith, the Islamic faith, right, leads to monotheism, one God, worshipping one God, right? That's why I am a Muslim, because I don't think that there is another monotheistic religion out there.
Why do you think that, I mean, the way that you phrase it, there's no way to God except through faith. And why would it be bad for God to have a mechanism to reach him that is through proof or evidence? Why is
Well,
faith a
that's a whole,
necessity?
no, the thing is, these are secondary level. Once you understand, right, and accept, there's no point talking to you about verse and scripture, because for me, you don't believe in God.
Wait,
So
my question stands. If the only way to God is through faith, and similar to my analogy, if the only way to join the live stream is through trusting random comments that say they'll send you bitcoins, why is God using the same mechanism that scammers use that could mislead you? Why can't God have a mechanism, a method of reaching him that is based on proof and evidence? Why is that a bad thing?
this is what this is. You know, these are higher level questions. With all respect, Aladdin, I'm not trying to belittle you, etc. If you read the Quran, okay, once you understand that there is a God, you have to accept, the premise is, right, you have to accept that God exists to discuss the notion about faith and belief and the mechanisms through which you can reach and attain a relationship with God.
So
Right? You have to
if I
accept
were to
that God
say,
exists.
if I were to accept that God exists,
Thank
would
you.
we be qualified enough? No, I said if. If I were to accept that God exists, would that qualify both of us to would do that qualify you to give me the answer of why does God only attain
No.
why can we only attain
Shall I,
salvation through faith
shall,
and not through evidence?
shall I tell you? That's what you call, Aladdin, a loaded question, right? Because that was a little jab at saying, "Are you qualified to pass on the knowledge to me?" I am
No,
telling you
that's
openly.
not what I
Hold
said.
on, hold on, Aladdin. I am not a scholar, right? I am far,
I'm well
far,
aware.
far from a scholar.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm well aware about your deficiencies. Okay.
Hmm.
In terms of understanding,
Hmm.
you have accepted the premise. Okay. Say if a God exists, yeah, I accept it. This is what Islam is about. Islam is not a religion, right? It will explain everything to you. It will explain how to start a relationship with God. Okay. How do you communicate to God, with God,
My question is very
right?
simple. Like perhaps I need a simpler man than yourself to answer it, but the question is, why is faith a necessity when faith can be the same mechanism that can mislead people? Why do you think it is bad, or why does Allah think that is bad, or why does Islam view it as bad to arrive at the conclusion or at belief in God through evidence and proof? Why is faith
You're,
a component?
you're saying, you maybe need a simpler man than me to answer the question, but
Hmm.
my answer to that question was in previous answers. If we accept the premise, faith is not a virtue,
Hmm.
right? In the same way that you use the example, faith can lead you to believe in some random guy to telling you to jump off a bridge. Yes. This faith is the substitute of the absence of your subjective, conclusive satisfaction of God existing, right? Because God said, look, if I showed myself, I'm not quoting, right? This is, if God showed himself to everyone would be like, okay, yeah, God exists. We can all see that.
Why is that so bad?
That, that, that is the
That's
whole,
a question. That's the question. Why is it good to believe in God without seeing him, but bad to believe in God because he saw him?
that is the whole test of faith,
What is being
belief.
tested? How gullible you are?
Why is God testing us?
No. What is being tested by that part of it? How gullible
It,
you
it,
are that you believe
no,
in
no,
God without seeing him?
no. It's testing your human nature, right? your free will, what
what
you
does that
decide
even
to do
mean?
with it.
What does that even mean? Your human nature? No. The question is very simple. If God were to appear in front of all of us and we would all believe, that is
I'm
bad.
sorry, I
Why?
I do not appreciate you saying, what does human nature mean? Right? Because if I said to you,
I don't
what is
care.
this idea? What is this idea of consciousness? Oh, it's such an abstract term. I don't believe in it. Do you believe in consciousness?
No. I think that's such a weird way of twisting what I said.
No,
I
but
said
you
what
didn't twist it.
he's testing human nature, and I think that's going so
You've
far away
mocked
from the
when
question.
I use
Mhm.
that term, human nature, right? Do you want me to talk about the innate aspect of the brain, the animal aspect of the brain, the high level functions of the
No, the
brain?
part that is we're talking about what is being tested by believing in God
Why?
without seeing him. Why do I care about human nature? And what does that even mean in that context? That's not what's being tested. What's being tested is how gullible you are to believe in God without seeing him. That's the one metric.
The test of faith. Let's not veer away from the actual discussion we're having about faith, right? Is God is testing us on earth, right? Whether we will submit to God's will and his commands, etc.
That's not the test. That's not the test. We're talking about whether you believe in God with seeing him or without seeing him. You mentioned that there's a verse in the Quran without quoting about how if God appeared, then everyone would believe in him. But then there's no point.
Have you heard me quoting the Quran in
No,
this
no.
conversation?
I said without quoting, and I know that you didn't quote it. But there is a verse about how I don't remember the exact verse.
I don't even want to talk about the Quran because
Right.
like I said to you, there's no point
Sure.
talking to you who believes that a book is a work of fiction when we haven't even established if God exists.
But you mentioned something about how if God appeared, then everyone would believe in him, but that would defeat the purpose, kind of. But what is the purpose of testing whether you would believe without seeing? That is the core of my question here. What is being tested in that scenario?
Now you have hit a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we being tested?
No, not just why we're being that's not the question. The question is, what is the test about when it comes to just believing in God without seeing him? What do you get for passing that? Isn't that the same as gullibility?
No. I don't understand your questions.
The question,
I don't understand your
right?
question.
If God were to appear to everyone,
your question
right?
is simple. I've simply reduced my understanding of your question as why is God testing us? You're saying that's not the question.
No. The question, you mentioned that if God appeared, then everyone would believe in him, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the test. The test is whether or not you would believe in him without seeing him, right? Like as among other things, among whether you would obey God when you believe in him, whether you would be a good person, all that other stuff. Leave that aside. Just would you believe in God without seeing in him? Why? What is being tested? What quality? What metric is being tested here?
What metric is being tested?
Yeah, what quality or metric or what is being tested about whether you would believe in God without seeing him versus that you would just believe in God if you saw him?
By giving you my answer, maybe I will understand whether I've understood the question. It is basically good deeds versus bad deeds, right? That's it.
So it's a bad deed to not believe unless you see something?
No, it's a bad deed not to believe in this one creator.
So if I say my creator, his name is Tallah, it's not Allah, right? And it's a bad deed to not believe in him without seeing him.
Hold up. It's, for me, I believe in an electron existing, okay? Yes? I believe in an electron. I cannot see that electron. That electron is not going to decide whether I am going to heaven or hell. Okay.
You can't just load premises on the electron or on the unseen entity and then say that's why you have to believe in this one thing without seeing it.
No, but this I can, because the distinction you're saying, you're talking about correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Why is God just testing us? Why is God testing us? Is it the belief that we can't see in him versus we can see him, or if we could see him? Is that the question?
No,
What is it? The
so
gullibility question?
yeah, so
You know?
if God were to show himself, like you
No,
said,
that is
everyone
not
would believe in him.
that's not the test. That is not the test, right? The test is
Then why
this.
doesn't God just show up and then test us on the rest of it?
Look, why don't you have that? Look, I don't want to. I don't really want to. I don't really want to demean you. But if a God doesn't exist, you're not going to have that question with God, right? If a God does exist, on the day of judgment, you can go and ask God, right?
But if God
If
were to
God
call
doesn't,
into my live stream, I'll ask him, but I'm talking to you right now.
yeah, I know, but you're talking about why is God testing us?
No,
That
that's
is
not
my
the question.
understanding.
That's not the question. The question, and again, I'll simplify it, by wanting
Simplify
us
it.
to believe
I don't,
without seeing,
I'm not
by
understanding it.
right, by wanting us to believe without seeing, what is being tested? So if God were to appear and everyone, according to you, would believe in him because they see him, that is not the test. Like then the test is moot. There's no point in the test. So what is that test? That part of that test, what is it testing?
What is it testing?
That part of the test.
Which part of the test? Could you repeat that part of
Believing
the
in
test?
God without seeing him, because that seems to be prerequisite. What is that testing?
There would be no test if you could see God.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Does that
we're on
make
the
sense?
same page there. There would be no test if you could see God, but because God is not there, there is a test. What is being tested?
This is your belief on whether that one creator exists.
So, what is being tested is whether or not you would believe in God without seeing him.
They're inextricably linked, right? Because
Yes or no? What is
forgive me,
being
because
tested is whether blind faith,
my
basically.
my comprehension of your questioning is quite limited. My comprehension is quite limited of your questioning, right? You might be asking the question and I'm just not getting it, right?
Sure.
If God showed himself, right, everybody would believe in God. Can we at least accept that premise?
If God were to show himself in a way, I don't even know if I accept that premise, but let's say for the sake of the argument here, sure. Yes.
Why don't you accept that premise, man? Why are you being so,
Because what is it? How would God, if God were to prove itself to every single person, then sure, then everyone would believe that God exists. Sure.
Yes, by the nature of your phraseology, right? If God were to prove himself, right? That, you know what I mean, right? I told you, Wittgenstein said we're limited by our language, right?
Sure.
That's probably why I'm not understanding. I'm having limited comprehension of your questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then God's proved he exists, right? God is showing himself to us. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now God says, "Do this. I'm the all creator. You got to worship me, right? And if not, I'm going to throw you into hell." Yes.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So we all know God exists. Let's use the word likelihood. I know I would certainly be like, okay, God, I'll do anything you say. I don't want to go to hell, right? Do you accept that that would be the general sentiment?
I think any sane person, if they knew for a fact that if they
Yeah,
disobey this command, they will be tortured forever, any sane
right,
person would probably
right,
comply. Yeah, sure.
right. So we accept that uh, line of argument, yes? Now let's introduce you cannot see God,
Mm-hmm.
yes?
Mm-hmm.
So some people
Not just you can't see
will,
God, you can't prove that God is real.
you can't prove God is, but
No, but we have to be
it's the
careful in
same
this
thing.
part. Seeing him here is is synonymous for proving that he exists. That's what you mean. That's the limitation of
No,
language.
no, no. I'm sorry, I won't accept that because as Muslims, if we're going to get into a theological debate about Scripture, right? Uh, any Muslim will say the proof of God is the word of the Quran, right?
But that's
So
not what we're
let's
talking
just
about.
not.
In this hypothetical that we're talking about, God
Yeah, exactly.
showed himself to everyone, meaning he proved
So
himself
in
to
simplicity,
everyone.
so
If
let's
God
take it
didn't
back
do
to the
that, right.
so God didn't do that. Let's just simply do that. God didn't show himself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So uh, by virtue of not seeing him, yes,
Mm-hmm.
you can't prove
You have plausible
God
deniability.
exists.
Yeah.
It's not plausible that you cannot prove, because people will only believe it if they see it, right? Let's
Okay.
use that simplistic term.
Okay.
So God is not showing himself, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now you have a group of people on earth, and they can't see God.
Mm-hmm.
They can't prove God exists. Yeah. But there have been many messages sent by
No.
God.
Wait. Let's pause there. Let's pause
Hold on.
before we
Shall I?
get to messages sent by God, because
This is what.
we have
This
two
is where the
scenarios. We
faith
have two
comes.
scenarios. God shows himself, proves himself to every single person, or God doesn't show himself. In scenario number one, everyone knows God is real. There is no denying it, because God proved itself to every single person. Therefore, he will be testing them whether they obey or they don't obey. But in scenario two, he doesn't show himself. They'll be tested on whether they believe he exists and then whether they obey or they don't obey.
No, but how? Why would they obey something that they cannot see?
But that's what I'm saying. I think we're almost on the same page. So what's being tested in scenario two is whether they would believe in something they can't see.
No, but the thing is, this is the same argument, my friend, about the electron, right? I cannot see the electron. Yes?
You can measure the electron. That's a different story. Let's focus on this analogy. Let's focus on this analogy.
I'm sorry. If you can prove the electron, if you can prove in a rigorous academic, scientific,
I'm not a
mathematical
physicist.
way.
Let's not talk about
Well,
electrons.
hey,
I don't like that we're moving away from the analogy that is perfect right now.
No. Shall I tell you why? Because the difference between an electron and God is God created you. The electron didn't create you.
Oh my God. This is extremely difficult. We're talking about, okay, you can't just add premises to the thing and then say, well, that proves it. We're talking about God showed himself to everyone, proved himself, everyone believes. Then he's not testing them on whether or not they believe in his existence. But then he doesn't show himself, and we're being tested on whether or not we believe. What is being tested here? Whether we believe without seeing?
No.
Then what?
Of course, that is an element of the test.
What is it called when someone believes things without seeing?
Sorry?
What is it called when someone believes? Say I come to you and I tell you news about something that happened in my town, and you believe me immediately. What is that called? Trust, gullibility, low standard of evidence?
No. Your premise is what? Sorry, could you repeat your question? Because I think we're getting somewhere. I do agree we're getting somewhere.
What's being tested here? What is being tested here by God not revealing itself?
Forget what is being tested?
Yeah, what is being what quality or metric is being tested by God not revealing itself?
That is called belief, right? Belief. That is the metric.
Right. So you said belief is not a virtue, but in this one particular.
Excuse me. I didn't say belief isn't a virtue. I said faith.
Faith is not. What is the difference between faith and belief in this scenario?
Right. You can have blind faith, right? But you cannot use it synonymously in the context with which I am explaining it to you, right?
What God is testing for is blind faith.
Oh, no. That's blind. I agree with your premise that faith is not a virtue. Faith can lead to bad things, right? Blind faith. That's why we have that bloody phrase, blind faith, right? You can believe in a person and they can tell you to jump off a bridge. Yeah, I agree with that. Belief in a creator that exists, that is all existing, right? That is where you get the word believer, right? He is a believer. He believes that creator exists. You cannot analogize the creator with some random guy who thinks is a false messiah and tells you to jump
But
off a
what if the
bridge.
random guy says that he knows the creator just like your random guy says that he knows the creator? You can't just put the premise in the conclusion and say, well, mine is different because mine is actually God.
No. Hold on. No, but the thing is, this is the bit. Now we're going around in a circle.
We've been doing that for quite a while.
No, we haven't. Because this concept, if this concept does not exist, this concept of a one creator, right? That's all powerful. Yes. All eternal.
I feel like we're not talking about the same point at this point. It's just about God testing you about whether or not you would believe in its existence without showing you. What is being tested in that sense?
I gave you an answer because I said belief.
Yeah, but belief in things you can't see, which is faith. Belief in things. Why is it good to believe in things you can't see?
I purposefully use that word belief as a metric, right? Because God will test. Do you actually believe in me, right? Yes.
Why is that a good thing? And why does God take it personally if someone says no?
Shall I tell you? This is the question that you need to ask God, man. Look, I'm telling you, God.
He's not here. If he was here, if he was real, I'd be asking him that same question.
No, but this is what I'm saying, Aladdin. If God doesn't exist, right, I am going to essentially constrain my life to praying 5 times a day, not drinking alcohol, not sleeping around, not enjoying a hedonistic lifestyle in the colloquial sense, right? And you're going to be right.
It's funny that all these examples are exactly what you want to do in heaven. So I don't know.
No. Look, hey. One sec. Just let me steer. If you're right, and if I'm right, yes, I'm going to be enjoying what God has promised, right? And you're going to be screwed.
That's Pascal's wager. That's just if I'm right, then I'm at least I'm not that bad. I'm not in a bad position right now. Sure, I might have sacrificed some time praying and whatnot, but then I'm safe. That's just Pascal's wager.
No, that's where Pascal's wager is based on probability. Yes. Pascal's wager is.
That's basically what you're saying is I'm not harming myself right now, and if I'm right, then I'm going to heaven. If I'm wrong, then I'm screwed.
No, that's not the line of my argument, because I need to convince you. I don't need to convince you. I'm trying to get across my argument that God exists, right? So that's
not an argument. That's just saying I'm okay. If God exists, I'm good. If he doesn't, you're or if he does, you're screwed. That's not an argument. No.
You accept?
No, because if God exists and if Allah exists are two very different premises. If Allah exists, then maybe I'm screwed. But if God exists, that's a different question.
Look, now you're saying God. I've just said when I said God, I meant Allah. Okay.
Okay, so let's be clear about it.
What do you mean? Let's be clear about it. There was no need to say that, man. I believe in one Creator, the God.
But the world doesn't revolve around your beliefs. To say if God exists, it could mean any God. It's not just about yours.
No, but we're in the constraints of a conversation between you and me.
But you purposely have been avoiding using the word Allah or Quran, so I had to assume that you meant God in a general sense.
Hey, I use the terms one Creator, all powerful, all eternal.
There are plenty of ideas about one creators that aren't specifically about a guy who gave a message to a guy in a desert. Like monotheism doesn't equal Allah.
Forget about the desert, man. Forget about the desert. You just need to stick to this level of conversation, right? Because, if you're going to start talking about scripture, there's no point me going to a Christian Trinitarian, right, and saying that if that Trinitarian is dead set, has unwavering belief, right, that there is a triune God, I won't be. The Quran, it writes, I won't be able to. If a disbeliever wants to continue disbelieving, No one's going to convince them, right?
You kind of lost me
So
there. So basically, your argument for God is if God is real, I'm set and you're screwed.
no, it isn't. No, it isn't. Excuse me, Aladdin. I
Hmm.
talked about. Let me give you a summary of what I talked about before I go, because I think we've been talking a
Hmm.
healthy amount of time.
Hmm.
We started talking about a moral code. Okay. We
Hmm.
then talked about the subjective and objective nature of moral codes as per theists and atheists. Specifically, me as a theist, subscribing to the idea of Islam. Okay. And then we moved on to talking about the idea of God, right? So we spoke about the contingency argument. We agreed on a lot of premises, right? And then we spoke about if God presented himself to an atheist, yes, what would you do? Yeah. And you again, you've agreed that if a God did exist, you would be stupid not to. You would. What I think you use the word. Um, I've forgotten the word that you use. You'd be silly to not obey God, right? If they identify themselves as God. The thing is, where you did disagree with me is about the binary nature of whether a book can be a fact or a fiction. I've said,
I
look,
think we've
we're
disagreed on a
limited,
lot more than that, but sure.
we're limited by by our language, okay? And we then talked about faith and belief, and then
So,
it's quite disappointing. It's quite
mm,
disappointing that after having that whole discussion, you're reducing my argument to Pascal's wager, right?
I mean, it's
Because
disappointing that you resorted to it at the end. You were talking about if God is real, I'm constraining myself. I'm not out sleeping around, and then I'm set, and then you're screwed. That's what you said. It's not what I said.
no, 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 no. And that is based on the premise whether a God exists or not. And we agreed in our conversation that whether God exists or not is either a yes or no question, right?
I
Either
think
the
there's a
God
lot of
exists
parts
or
where we didn't agree, but we had to move along with the conversation.
either that God exists or the God doesn't exist.
Hmm.
If we can't get past that idea, right? If we can get past that idea, then it would subsume, yeah, that there's a 50% chance of that God existing, right?
Hmm.
And then you interjected
No.
on by saying God and Allah. And I'm saying, look, of course I'm
Look,
talking about Allah.
I could have $1 million in my bank account. Maybe I don't. Does that mean that there's a 50-50 chance that I have $1 million in my bank account? Based on the fact that, I have a Patreon, no, I definitely don't have $1 million in my bank account.
Hey,
So
there's a
that's
50%.
there's not a
Is there a 50?
50% chance that I do. Anyone can make an
We're
educated
talking about
guess
math.
that I
It's
don't.
not about education. It's basic mathematics. If
No,
you're
it's not
talking
basic
about,
mathematics. I mean, I can make any claim, and according to your logic, there's a 50% chance that I'm right. But that's not how it works.
how does it work? Tell me.
I mean, in my
Sure.
analogy, you can look at my
No.
lifestyle, you can look at my place, you can look at
Excuse me.
how I'm
Excuse me.
behaving.
Mathematically speaking, please,
Hmm.
please, please. If you're going to ask a binary question, yeah, please tell me how mathematically it's either a yes or a no.
What? So the binary question is: do I have $1 million in my bank account? Does that mean that there's a 50% chance I do and a 50% chance I don't?
No. That
It's the
specific
same thing.
amount. No, no, no. Hold up. You need to understand in maths, we have a thing called assumptions, right?
Hmm.
Yes? Let's
I
assume. I'm
assume
sure.
that's also in other fields, not just in math, but sure.
Yeah. So we're talking in a mathematical context in terms of probability, right? You either have the £1 million, or you don't.
Hmm.
So if you have 999,999, you do not have $1 million.
Hmm.
Do you at least follow that logic? I'm not
I
saying it's not
assume
one
that I
out of a
do.
million. Probably in a binary question, using that word binary, in a yes or no question, that is the assumption. There is a 50% chance of the outcome. It's either a yes or a no, buddy. Because
Wait, that was a leap.
No. You're not understanding the mathematical assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
The question itself is a yes or no question. There's no I don't know. If you introduce I don't know, then it's 33.3% recurring. Right?
Like
in a yes or no question.
If I play the lottery, I could win or I could lose. Does that mean that my chances of winning the lottery are 50%?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't mathematically. But
Thank you.
in the question, do you accept in a yes or no question? Forget the question in itself. Do you accept in a yes or no question, the answer is either yes or no?
I mean, if we're defining it as a yes or no question, then sure, the answer is yes or no.
Right. So does God, using that logic, does God exist? Yes or no? So what is that's what I mean by a 50% chance of God existing. Either God exists or he doesn't.
That's not how percentages work. It doesn't mean that he's 50% likely to exist and 50% not likely to exist.
No, you use the word likely. That's completely different, buddy.
Likely and percentage is colloquially like that. That's just
not
synonyms.
I'm talking about true mathematics, my friend. Okay, because I told you I'm a scientist by background. I've done a lot of mathematics. In a yes or if you are not accepting in a yes or no question, right? The answer is yes or no. You are sounding silly with your viewers, right? The answer is yes or no. I am asking the question, does God exist, comma, yes or no? So the answer is yes or no. So either he exists or he doesn't. That is the 50% nature of my answer that I'm talking about. I can hear you understanding it because you're not talking.
No, that's not the only reason why I would stop talking, but yeah.
So either God exists or he doesn't, right? Let's not talk about, so either you are an atheist, right? Or you are an agnostic or you are a theist, right? Either God exists, you don't know, or God doesn't exist in your view, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you accept that?
Honestly, I have no idea why we're even still talking about that one point, but like I said, the concept of God is a man-made concept. Adhering to that concept, could it be a possibility that that concept exists? Yes or no question.
Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Cut the crap, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In the question, does God exist, comma, yes or no? What's your answer? Yes, it's a yes or no answer.
Does blah blah exist? It's a yes or no answer. You'll ask me, what does blah blah mean?
Well, look, I'll give you an answer. Yes, it exists because you said blah blah, okay?
So you know for sure blah blah exists?
No. I'm just giving you a random answer to a random question. Right?
I mean, by that logic, I'll give you a random answer to your God question.
I am not going to give you an answer.
I'm just demonstrating the point that you'll ask me, what does blah blah mean? And just because God is, you understand it to mean a certain thing, doesn't mean that I owe you a yes or no question.
Okay, but look, that's fine. I've demonstrated the 50% nature of. It doesn't prove the premise of the question, right? It doesn't prove the premise of the question. Don't conflate the yes or no with the proof, right? So it's very simple. The thing about atheists and agnostics is we are simple creatures, right? We are limited.
Wait, are you part of the atheists and agnostics?
No, I'm talking about mankind, humans.
Okay.
Right. That's what I mean by we. We are simple creatures. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the theists as well. All of us are simple creatures.
We are all simple creatures. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We start thinking about. I don't mind talking about criticism. I don't mind talking about, very, very complex philosophical concepts, right? Or something as arbitrary as a triune God, right? But we need to try to understand simple things first before we can try and understand complex things, right?
Hmm.
So if you apply your same burden of proof to an electron, the thing is, 99% of people who have heard of an electron in their science lesson will be like, yeah, of course an electron exists. I remember doing those circles, right? Those electron shells in science. Of course they exist. But mathematically, scientifically, there is no objective proof for an electron. But our brain thinks, but we can measure it. So how do atoms work, etc.? With God, I've given you the arguments. I've gone through the moral code. I would invite you to read into what is subjective, what is objective, right? What
Hmm.
we understand as an objective moral code. Where do I, as an atheist, get my moral code from?
Hmm.
It is arbitrary in nature, it's subjective by definition, right? So this is it conducive to society, etc.? Is there a creator? We've explored all these questions, and I've enjoyed talking to you, Aladdin. I'm going to have
Likewise,
to go
I
because
can't say I haven't enjoyed it. You've given me a lot of food for thought, and yeah, thank you for coming on the
no,
show.
I'm sorry for interjecting and cutting you off. So apologies if I've been
All
rude
good,
in any way.
all good.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you, thank you.
take care.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you for sticking with us. That was a long live stream. Um, Yeah. And the last thing I want to say, I suppose, is that being that you're all my viewers, you're all my subjects in a sense, um, this is now officially an objective channel. And anything I say is objectively my objective truth by virtue of you being subjects to me. Anyway, it was an enjoyable conversation. I hope that people weren't too frustrated by watching us go back and forth. And thank you everyone for wanting to join and for joining. And all that aside, if you would like to talk to me, keep an eye out for the live streams. They're every Wednesday. I'll change the timing a little bit so that more people get a chance to join from all around the world. And if you don't have a chance to join any of these live streams, or if you don't want to talk about what you want to talk about in public, click the link in the description to book a session with me if there's one available for free, or if you are able to donate a session for someone who needs it, or if you're able to pay for a session. These are all options. So yeah, just letting you know in case live streams are not your thing. Yeah, thank you all for attending and for being here. And I want to say a special thank you to all the patrons, YouTube members, and donors for enabling me to be able to do what I do. I could not do it without you.